Welcome back to the Creating Distance podcast, hosted by TA Sales. I'm your host, Tom Alaimo. Some people call me Tommy Tahoe. And each week on Fridays, we'll be bringing you an episode to break down with salespeople and sales leaders the top tips, tactics, strategies, stories that you need to get to the next level of your career and up level yourself. So let's get into it.
We are live first day of October. So for anyone that joins in on LinkedIn, happy October, first day of October, first day of Q4. For most of y'all, you can feel free to throw some questions or comments or anything that you've got in the chat. I'll be sure to answer them. We'll be here for about 30 minutes, just talking, riffing. I put out a post this morning, just hired our first sales rep here at TA Sales, Joe Roberts, that's in another room on a call. But we're in a new era of growth and taking it to the next level. Been working with a ton of teams in the last few months, getting ready, closing out their Q3s. Or closing out whatever quarter ended in September. Some of them, it was the end of their fiscal. If you're coming in, either you had a fantastic September, closed it strong, shut it down, made some big commission, or maybe you're trying to pick up the pieces a little bit. Maybe you shot your shot and it didn't quite work out as you wanted. Either way, you're here, and let's talk about how to close out the year on a strong note. So I'm not going to go any slides or anything like that. But let me put something in the chat here. Okay, cool. So if you're on this and you're on LinkedIn, you can feel free to put anything in the chat. If you're watching this recorded, then you're going to just hear me talking about Q4 and getting the year kicked off. So we're finished off strong. Here's the thing. I think that the best time to sell, especially if you're in B2B, the best time to sell is between Labor Day and Thanksgiving. So we are about a third of the way through that great stretch. And then you got another kind of like rush in between Thanksgiving and the final holiday, Christmas, New Year's kind of season. And if that's the end of your fiscal year, then you might be going up till, 9 p.m. on New Year's trying to close deals. But this is my favorite time of the year to sell. People are back from vacation, their kids are back at school, budgets, people have some extra budget for the end of the year. They're starting to plan out their goals and priorities for 2026. It's just a beautiful time to be in sales and to be having conversations with folks. So there's a few things that I want to do. If this is the first day of your quarter, or if you're joining us and you're on a monthly quota, or if you're joining and your quota starts in November because you're on like the Salesforce calendar, it's all good. But basically, here's my formula for kicking off a new quarter, and let's talk about it from a pipeline perspective, and we'll talk about it from a deal closing perspective. No matter what position that you're in, I always want to take the first day of the quarter, or if you need to do it on Friday because you have some extra kind of like rollover calls, or on Monday or over the weekend or whatever you got, to just do a little bit of a reset. So to me, that's just clearing off some meetings, that's creating some open space on the calendar and starting to evaluate and doing some inventory of what you what you did last quarter, right? So for me, each quarter, I'm setting a list of goals. I'm setting personal goals and I'm setting professional goals, and they usually fall into a couple buckets. On the personal side, they might fall into like my friends and family bucket. They might fall into a health bucket. They might fall into a fun or hobbies type of bucket. And then on the professional side, for our business, there's certainly a revenue number. There's some marketing goals, some training, operational goals, and things like that. If I'm in sales, then I've got my quota to hit, and I might have some other personal development type of goals that I have there too, reading books, listening to podcasts, getting a promotion, getting some sort of certification. So I think the first step is let's take a look back on the last 90 days. How did it go? Compared to where you sat down on July 1st, how did things go? According to plan, better, worse? It's the time to take just a real serious inventory of how things went. And what's up, Andy DeRoos in the chat? Good to see you, man. Let's feel free to throw something in there and we can talk some turkey, man. I wish I could get you off of mute on this LinkedIn live, but I think it's just me rambling for the time. But shout out to everyone else that's on here live. So to kick off the quarter, I want to take some time. I want to do a reflection, like I'm saying. How did I do in terms of my goals? I'd look back onto my calendar and I'd say, depending on where things went well or not well, where was I spending my time? So I'm a big color coded calendar person. So to me, I have different colors separate for when I'm doing deep work, like prospecting. When I have revenue generating calls, I put those in green. Any breaks that I take. For me, I'm putting things like training in there. I'm putting things like marketing in there. For you, you might be putting, your prospecting. You might be putting your deal meetings. You might be putting your deep work. Could be more of like putting proposals together and decks and things like that. And then you've got like your internal meetings and things like that. Any other personal things that you do, you work out, you have Sunday dinner with your family. I put it all in there. And something that you could do in the Google Calendar is be able to identify what percent of my time was I spending in each of these buckets in any given week. So it's interesting because when you just think about it, you might think, hey, look, I'm not where I want to be on October 1st for the year for my quota. And, it feels like I'm spending all these time with customers. It feels like I'm doing quote unquote all the right things. My manager's telling me I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not where I want to be. The first step I would take is go back to the calendar, and if you show me your calendar, you're showing me your priorities. So if you go there and you can see the percent of time that you actually spent, what percent of your time did you actually spend prospecting? What percent of your time, how many calls, customer calls did you actually have every single week on a weekly basis? Were you doing anything from a personal development standpoint to increase your skill set? And what happens with me, I'm not going to speak for anyone else on the call, but what happens for me oftentimes is if I feel myself in a rut, I find that I'm spending a disproportionate amount of my time doing things that are not really moving the ball forward and that are not also giving me a lot of energy. And they might feel like I'm, getting some shit done and I'm productive and I'm busy, but it's not moving the ball forward. I might be busy working with people on my team. I might be in a bunch of internal meetings. I might be helping on this other ancillary project that is not helping me hit my quota. Um, but I'm not actually getting a lot of stuff done. So I think you got to have an honest look with yourself at what's going on and see is that something that you want to improve on, and how could I spend if I'm not where my numbers are? I either need to spend more time creating pipeline, or I've got to spend more time with customers, or probably both, and I got to increase the quantity or the quality of my work. So that is what it is. Now there are always some third party reasons for why things aren't going your way or might not go your way. It could be territory, it could be your product, it could be, the seasonality of sales and the summer slowdown and all this type of stuff. So I can't speak for everyone that might be listening to this and in your situation, but for me, I want to, in as many cases as possible, control my inputs and focus on what I can control so that I can put myself in the best position to win. That's all. That's really all that we're doing. So if I could put myself in the best position to win, that's where I need to be. So that's spending my time in the right places. So for me, that means tightening up the percent of my time and also what part of my day am I doing that? For me, I cannot do my prospecting for the most part. I can't bank on doing it later in the day. Same with a workout. Like I need to work out in the morning. I need to prospect in the morning because the day gets crazy. Once 9 or 10 o'clock hits, I've got meetings, I've got fires to put out, I've got Slack messages, I've got all sorts of stuff that's going on. And I can't bank on having 90 minutes at the end of my day to really dive in and, set up a bunch of cold lists and prospect and cold call and stuff like that. So time zone wise, you've got to adjust. But I think the cure for everything is having more pipeline, right? Then every deal doesn't have to be as perfect. You can fall a little bit on timelines. You can take a little bit of pressure off on certain things towards the end of the quarter if your pipeline is massive and you're working more opportunities. So let's get into the world of prospecting, building pipe. Andy, I appreciate your positivity. You got this. If you got any specific stuff, we can get into it. But the beauty is that in the next 90 days, 92 days until the end of the year, this is truly the best time to sell. There's still, if you're not where you want to be, there's still plenty of opportunity to get there, but you're going to have to get it going now. So the deals that you're going to close at the end of the year are deals that you sourced either last month or probably right now. So now is the time. So if you're behind where you're at, it's okay. You don't need to kick yourself while you're down, but we got to get some urgency. So um, if I'm prospecting, there's a few key plays that I'm going to do in Q4 to really hit the ground running. So, first and foremost, let's look back at the last quarter and let's see, are there any plays or is there any data to tell me what's working well and what's not? So you'll hear a lot of gurus on LinkedIn talk about, always say this on a cold call, always do this on a cold email, use LinkedIn, use video, this, that. I say that stuff all the time. Only you know for your own business what's really working and what's not. So try to evaluate, where did my last 10 meetings come from, 20 meetings come from, and how can I replicate that more? If it's from cold calls, great. If it's from LinkedIn, great. If it's from referrals, great. Lean into what is actually working right now and try to do more of that and better of that. Um, the other piece that I want to do is I want to find what's the lowest hanging fruit that I can find that I've already put some effort into earlier this year that I can just scoop up towards the end of the year and start to use timing as my reason for reaching out. So, easy example, close lost opportunities from the last 12 months or 18 months. I would reach back out to them immediately and I'd say, hey, Tom, know that we had a chat going on in March around sales training. No, it wasn't the right time, or I know you were talking about hiring SDRs. How did that go? We're starting to plan out a lot of stuff around our sales kickoffs and training for 2026. Curious if you'd be open to another chat, right? So find a reason that is might be new that's going on in your company. It could be a product release. It could be something new you're doing with customers. It could be just that, it's a reset and people want to kick off the year strong or close the year strong and go back to those. A lot of opportunities just die on the vine because it's bad timing and you can't control that. And it might have been the wrong person, might not have been budget, whatever it is. So you want to just relentlessly kind of go back to those: email, call, LinkedIn, try to get some easy conversations going that way. The second piece that I think is really underutilized in Q4 prospecting is getting referrals. So I think there's some stats that say 80% of customers would be willing to give a referral, and 15% of people, salespeople, ask something like that. That's quite ridiculous. And this is something that is working like gangbusters for me personally right now. Is really being proactive about referrals. So there's three levels of ways you can go about the referral machine. The first level is like you just don't ask, and if you don't ask, you're not going to get anything. Or maybe every once in a while someone will proactively think of you, but you're lucky if that happens. The second piece is that you can ask, and I could be on a call with Andy and I can say, hey, Andy, you've been a great customer. Would love to find more customers that look like you in your business. Is there anyone that comes to mind that you might be able to introduce me to? Now that's good. It's not great, but it's good because it gives you at least you're asking, and it puts something out into the open for someone to respond to. But it's not great, and the reason it's not great is that it's not specific enough. So the play that I've been using, and it has been working phenomenally, is I've been going to some of my best customers, advisors, general supporters, and I just reach out and I say, hey, Andy, it's been great to work with you the last year. Have loved working with Acme Corp. Um, Look, something that I'm personally trying to do and improve on is really leverage my great relationships to try to meet more interesting and great customers like you. If I spend some time, now that's usually where it ends, and then people ask like, okay, who do you know? Take it one step further and say, hey, if you're open to it, could I spend a couple hours in LinkedIn, going combing through your network, finding people that I think that I have a hypothesis that could be a good fit for what we do, and that you're personally connected to. If I sent you a list of like 10 to 12 people, would you be willing to comb through it? And then if there's anyone applicable, make an intro. I could even ghostwrite the note for you and give you their email. So literally all you have to do is look through the list and then copy and paste if anyone's applicable. Would you be open to that? And I'm getting a 9 out of 10 say yes to that. Going through the list. And now this part takes a little bit of effort, right? Because then you're going into sales nav and I'm seeing, okay, Andy used to work at Walmart during these years. And I'm trying to find people he might be connected to that are within my ICP that might have a trigger. If I have a set of accounts, I can run that through. And then I'm trying to find like, did they work at the same time? Did they work in the same office? Do they might they know these people? Do they have the same investors? So there's a little bit of effort that you have to put in, of course. But then I'm compiling, and I've been working with my SDR. Shout out Nicole, the SDR, and she's been compiling these lists of here's 15 people. Let's go to Andy. We send that list, and we're getting a 50, 60% hit rate on those. So, it might take an hour or two. Instead of making 100 calls, we're going there and she's sending out those 15 names. Someone says, cool, I can intro you to eight of those people. Of those eight, we might set up four or five really warm intro calls. So not even just like a cold outbound, but someone that we're coming with credibility and a referral, and they're more likely to show up and they're more likely to have an actual project that we can talk about. And my goal for my sales math is to book, probably about 4 meetings a week to get to my current goals. So in one run from one person and getting those intros, assuming that they're willing to do that, I can hit my whole weekly goal just from that. So if you're at a startup and you have no customers, that's probably not going to be a great solution. But maybe you could find people that know you personally, that trust you, that would be willing to do that. But I think, if someone that I know and trust or has a product that I know and trust asks me for a referral, I'll give it all day long. I connect people all day for jobs and for different goals and for different projects and things like that, because it makes me feel good. And, I'm trying to create some sales karma for myself. So people are willing to help, but you have to ask them and you need to do it in a strategic way. So I would highly recommend stealing that play and using that for some warm opportunities. One or two other ideas for warm pipe gen in Q4. It's a great time. People are changing jobs. Like I mentioned, just hired Joe as our first rep. So people like him are changing jobs at the end of the year. They're starting to change jobs, getting ready for the next year. They're thinking about their lives and all these different things. And so I might go to Sales Nav and I might see who started a new role in the last 90 days. I might see who that was a former customer of ours started a new role and try to find some low hanging fruit that way and see who might have some sort of intent around something that I sell towards. So, yeah, so just to answer the question from the chat from Andy about the referral play that we're doing right now. So, yeah, basically the exact steps are I ask the person, step one, I ask the person, are you willing to, if I do all the work, are you willing to look through the list and give intros if you feel comfortable? Because I don't want to spend 2 hours doing that, and if they're not willing to. They say yes. Then I find the people, that process that I just described. I send that list of 12 to 15 people and I give them the reason why. So I don't just say Joe Smith. I say, Joe Smith, looked like you worked with him at Salesforce from 2021 to 2022. He's at this new company, Acme. They just got their Series C of funding. They're hiring 12 SDRs. I thought that we might be able to help them with their onboarding process. So that color and context just adds a little bit more comfort, I think, to the person that like, all right, they know what they're talking about, and there might be a real fit here. So I send them that list and I say, hey, I took my best guesses. Can you let me know if I nailed any of these? I'm seeing like a 50 to 60% hit rate, which is pretty high. If I asked you someone at random, if you know them on LinkedIn, I bet you it's like, single digit percent. So that's a really high hit rate. Then once they send that, in that note, I'll say any hits. If so, I'll ghost write a note for you to send and find their email if you're cool with that. They say yes. Then I ghost write each note. Personally, I go into Apollo, I find their email, I try to make it truly as easy as I possibly can. And I'll say in my note, I would say something like, hey Andy, this is from them. I'd say, hey Andy, this is Joe. Long time no talk from our days at Salesforce. Look, a friend of mine, Tom Alaimo, and I'll link my name in LinkedIn, reached out. He saw the Series C funding and that you're hiring a bunch of SDRs. He wanted to see if you might be open to an intro. By the way, we've been using his team. We love what they do. They've helped us create a bunch of pipeline or whatever the real context is. I've known Tom for 8 years. We haven't used his services yet, but I really like his content, or he's been a good friend of mine, or I purchased Gong through him, or whatever it is, through whatever personal connections that you have. Are you open to an intro? And I would rather them ask that person for the intro, give the green light, and then I come in, versus just do the blind intro because some people find that weird. And I don't know, I kind of find that weird too. So that's the process. it doesn't feel like prospecting because you're not sending a bunch of emails, you're not making a bunch of calls. But for me personally, the hit rate is phenomenal. And it's something that Joe and I, for his day one, we will be starting to do. Great. Yeah. Might try this in my meeting in 15. Do it. Try it in 15 minutes. Let me know how it goes. It's been an absolute killer for pipeline. Um, the other piece that we could talk about is like on the deal acceleration, the deal closing side for the end of the year. So a few things that I would keep in mind for Q4. Number one, again, there's a lot of opportunity. And just because it wasn't a good fit earlier in the year or something like that doesn't mean that you can't go back to the well and keep trying and keep going for it. So shoot your shot, try to find new opportunities, try to find new angles. And I think, the other piece that's worth bringing up is, um, you want to ruthlessly disqualify at this point because every minute or hour that you're spending with an unqualified prospect is taking away from time that you can spend with really qualified folks. In Q4, I mean that is always true, but in Q4 it's even more important because things are going to come down to the wire. A lot of these, no matter how hard you plan for it, you're going to come down to the crunch time for you're hitting your quota or not hitting your quota or your team goals or your accelerators or whatever it might be. I think you want to ruthlessly disqualify. So the way that I would do that, throughout discovery is really to press back and make sure that the goals or the pain or the priorities that you're talking about are a number one or two or three priority for the business. And if they're not one of those three, they're not going to get funded. They're not going to get the roll through. They're not going to be able to build a business case around it. And that's okay. And you want to create a space for buyers where they can tell you no. And that they can say, now's not the right time. And they can say, this isn't a good fit, or we are looking at your competitor, or whatever it might be, so that you can spend your time. I'd rather spend way more time and go above the top for half of the amount of opportunities than have way more opportunities, but a bunch of them are floppy or soft. So I think you want to really focus on not only the qualification, but the disqualification process as part of that. So that's where we're at. We're going back. We're shooting our shot. We're trying the referral play. We're going to focus on a lot of qualification, disqualification, selling the vision, things like that. Um, a couple pieces that I got. I put out a post the other day about asking questions. I got a few that I'll just read off here before we sign off. So one was about starting a new gig. What would I do in a new gig, in a new job to be successful in the first 30 days? So to me, the thing is, it's all about attitude and effort early on. You're not going to know a lot about the product. You might not know a lot about the industry. I think you want to try to get as good of a feel for the pain and the real circumstances that your prospects have, the more that you can, what they said at Gong when I worked there was the better you can explain your prospects' pain, if you can explain it better than they could, that's when you earn a lot of trust with them. So the more deeply you can be empathetic and know what they're actually going through, how do you do that? You listen to a bunch of calls. You read the books that they read. You listen to the podcasts they listen to. You follow the people on social media that they follow. And you probably haven't done their job. If you're selling to an HR leader, you might not have been an HR leader. If you're selling to a CTO, you probably haven't been a CTO. So you need to find a way to get into their shoes, go to those events, go to their webinars, go to their content, things like that. There's plenty of ways to do it, but you can't only come from it from a salesperson's lens. You want to come at it from a solutions provider and someone that can be a consultant and knows their world and can speak their language. So um, that's one angle that I would focus on the first 30 days. Be a sponge, sit down with the top rep, take them out to lunch or buy them a virtual Zoom coffee lunch and talk to them and ask them about what's going on. If you're using a tool like Gong or others, watch the most successful reps. What do they do on their cold calls? What do they do in their deals? Watch a deal from first call to close. What did that look like? How did that feel? All that type of stuff is how you want to be a sponge and really learn. And then I think you just want to get out there. The quicker you can start making calls, quicker you can start sending emails, quicker you can get into deals. You want to fail fast. You want to fail early. and get things going as much as you can. So that would be my answer to that. I'll ask or I'll answer one or two more questions here before we wrap. Next question is, if you had a tough Q3 kicking off Q4, what would you do to change things up? Um, Anytime that I'm in a slump, I want to, outside of the things that I talked about, which is like checking your time management, focusing your time on the right places, increasing your volume is usually something that helps. But I think the other piece of this is we often talk with the teams we work with about the inner game of sales. And there's this outer game or like the skill set game of I want to be great at cold calling. I want to run good discovery. I want to know how to multi-thread, so on and so forth. And then there's the inner game of like, how's my energy? How's my confidence? How am I showing up every day? And it's a little bit more of an intangible, but it's something that is worth focusing on. So I would, if I was in a slump, bring it back to the fundamentals. Make sure I'm waking up at a good time. I'd make sure I'm getting my workouts in. I'd make sure I'm sleeping enough. I'd make sure I'm spending time with my friends and family. I'd probably slow down on, some of the drinking and some of the this and that, like maybe some of the distractions. I try to just like really clean stuff up. And I find that when I'm in a good rhythm with some of that, that I'm more productive at work. I find when I'm doing things that give me energy outside of work, that shows up for work as well. So that's different for everyone. For some people, that's a workout class. For some people, that's stowing. For some people, that's cross country skiing. Spending time with their grandmother, like whatever that thing is. Where afterwards you feel like you just got a bolt of energy. That's the thing that you want to make sure you can schedule and find time to do during the week, especially like maybe a Wednesday or Thursday, like when the vibes get a little bit low, to try to like re-energize yourself a little bit. So I would focus on that type of stuff. Cut out the negative people, cut out the things that are draining you, take a break from some of that stuff, whatever that is, and really try to focus on your energy. And I watch thousands of calls a year. I do so many call reviews, and I can tell in the first 3 minutes based on the rep's energy, how that call is probably going to go. I mean, I don't know what the customer is going to say. I don't know if they're going to buy. I don't know if they're a good ICP fit from 3 minutes, but I know energetically how the rep is showing up. And are they showing up with good energy, with confidence? Are they here to serve? Or do they have commission breath? Are they super anxious about their deals? Are they trying to force it? Do they not believe in what they're selling? I was chatting with someone the other day, and she was saying that she didn't really believe in what she was selling. And if that's the case, like I'm going to be able to see that on the other side. And I might not say it to you, but I'll feel it. And even if it's subconsciously, it's a transfer of emotion, it's a transfer of enthusiasm. And if you don't have that genuinely for what you sell, it's going to be tough to get me on board. So you want to have that energy. And I think my last bit before we sign off here is just to make sure you're in the right vehicle. Um, so yeah, just one more question here in the chat from the Creating Distance email. Shout out to anyone that subscribed to the newsletter. Um, yeah, using Hyperbound. So we have a new partnership that we announced with Hyperbound. Hyperbound is an AI role playing company. So if you want to buy it, you can buy it from me. But you can basically create a bot online that looks and feels like your buyer in about 2 minutes, and I was very skeptical. It's scarily realistic. And maybe your company has invested in another one already. There's a lot of other options on the market, but I love the guys at Hyperbound. And so I don't think you can buy it as an individual rep. I think you have to buy it as a team. You can try it for free. There's like a free demo instance. But it's been really helpful for a lot of my customers. And for me personally, I do some practice discovery calls. My customers, I have them do practice cold calls and things like that to role play with the bot. And it's very, very realistic. So it could be something that's worth checking out and trying as part of your personal development. I think the last nugget that I'll share is just you want to put yourself in an opportunity in the right vehicle to succeed. So if you're coming up towards the end of the year and you feel like, I am doing all the right things. or I don't really believe in what I'm selling, or I've got a toxic leadership environment, or whatever it might be. You want to try to find the right angle for yourself. You want to try to find the right opportunity. So, if that's the case, hit me up. I'll try to help you. But you want to find somewhere that you can succeed, that's investing in you. Speaking and investing in salespeople, in their coaching and training. If there are any sales leaders or enablement folks in the house or checking out this recording, um, let us help you with sales kickoff. Most of the time, sales kickoff, there's so much time and money and energy. Companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars on their sales kickoff process, flying everyone into Vegas to do it and putting on all these events, bringing in speakers, bringing in, whoever to talk about, whatever that, might be inspiring to someone. But there's a few key issues. One is that oftentimes there's not a lot of focus on skill development. They might bring in a motivational speaker. But Serena Williams, as inspiring as she is not going to help me sell better. You know what I'm saying? The guy from Unreasonable Hospitality, as much as I love that book, he's going to get me excited, but he's not going to help my skill set. So you want to get someone or a team that can help with your skill set, and you want there to be some form of reinforcement. 90% of things that we learn as humans, without reinforcement, we lose 90% within a week. So if you want to learn how to play the guitar, if you want to learn Spanish, if you want to be great at cooking, baking bread, that's something that you need to practice and do reinforcement and get coaching on. So every program that we run, we do 2, 3, 6, 12-month programs with a ton of reinforcement, with coaching, with using AI role plays, with using human-based role plays, to help your team get better. So if you're focused on Q4, if you're focused on your sales kickoff, if you want to have a fantastic 2026 and you need some help, hit us up. My DMs are open. You can email me, tom@tasales.co. If you want to hear a pitch from our newest sales rep, Joe, you can simply like this video or let me know, and I'll sick him and have him send you a cold call and try to catch you live. Appreciate everyone for showing up. Appreciate everyone checking out the recording.
Thanks for checking out that episode. Two quick things as a takeaway. Number one, we would feel honored if you left a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, if it's on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, to just let us know how we're doing, what else you'd like to see. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can check us out at tasales.co. Love to hear from you there. Much love. Have a great week.